Okay, what it is. Father Moo on the mic again. And what's that? Do we hear the lovely and beautiful sounds of the Zoom MS-70 CDR? No, we do not, because it is not plugged in today. Whoa. Well, if you haven't guessed already, the reason it's not plugged in is because I'm going to do something a little different. I've been on my little kick of making dub-style tracks, and that's not what we're going to do today. So hang on to your pants, because here we go. In fact, not only are we not going to do that today, but usually I try to make something that's at least relatively listenable in the video, and we're not going to do that either. What we are going to do is build a synth. It might be more accurate to say we're going to build a Groovebox, because let's just take a look here for something interesting to look at. This is a Groovebox I would like to buy. It's called the Metal Fetishist, and it's made by Body Synths, a new company. And before I say anything, I would like to say you should buy this. You should go out and buy one. Just don't buy the last one, because I still want to buy it. And someday I probably will. But right now, I can't afford to. So I had the brilliant idea, which I have brilliantly had many brilliant times before. This is called the Dunning-Kruger effect, of building a Groovebox as close as I can get to the Metal Fetishist using good old Nord Modular, currently blank. So, with that in mind, I went and got their manual, and I think not only am I going to try and build it, I'm going to try to build it the way it's laid out on this page. I think it might help to zoom in. That should do it, and we will slide around as needed to see all the bits. So that's what we're going to do today. If you don't know what the Metal Fetishist sounds like, it's an extremely noisy instrument. I think it's primarily designed to do what you might call something that sounds like industrial percussion, like very noisy percussion. But it can also do drones, and it can do melodies if you want it to. I don't think melodies are its strong point, but what I've heard is that it makes very noisy patterns. I watched a couple of YouTube videos. And it also is semi-randomized, which is one of the reasons I like it. So, let's see how close we can get today. Obviously, my Nord Modular is digital. I don't actually know what the hardware inside this instrument is. It could be digital or analog, but it certainly sounds wacky, or one might say quirky. So yeah, let's start building. Let's look at what we got here. So we got a noise source and an oscillator source. And I think later in the manual they say there can be more than one oscillator, like tuned an octave apart. There's also an audio input, and we'll ignore what's on the bottom right now and stick with the signal flow. The oscillator and the noise and the audio input are all sent to a mixer. The mixer goes into a filter, which goes into distortion, which goes into a volume control and an audio out. And there's also some ways to mess with those sounds. The pitch envelope decay and the pitch envelope amount will mess with the pitch of the oscillator. And a similar chain, cutoff envelope delay and cutoff envelope amount will mess with the filter. Those envelopes have to be triggered. The synth has a button that can do that, but it also has a random step modulation generator. And this guy is an interesting, weird guy, because if you look at that box, this box goes up to random step modulation amount, which then messes with the filter and with the mixer. My cursor pointed at the wrong thing. There's also this here, another envelope decay, which modifies the amount, which controls the overall volume after the filter and distortion have been applied. And as I said, the random step modulation generator is good at making things weird or generative or stochastic, as they say, meaning that the person controlling the Groovebox isn't actually deciding on all the functions. Some of them are being left up to the box itself. I don't think it would be accurate to call this AI, which I know is a dirty word, even worse than the B word, which is the name of a synth manufacturer. We just don't say that word on this show. And anyway, the generating random modulation is, if it's AI, it's like the lowest, dumbest form of AI. This is not AI-generated music, just for anyone who's keeping score at home. But what it does do is it messes with the modulation of things, and there's also this one called Random Skips Generator. So since it's generating steps randomly, it can also generate skips, by which it means it ignores some of those steps. This may not be possible to build in the Nord Micromodular, but for reasons we'll see, I don't think it's super necessary. And I think this can be set to essentially 0, which would make it a more programmable or repeatable step. And I think I have an idea of how to deal with that. There's also sequencer steps, looper. Well, those are just two different ways of messing with the steps. As I said, in my instrument that I build today, we will probably mess with them in different ways. And, I guess it's also fair to say we don't have a trigger button to trigger the envelope. But as you can see here, the random skips generator can also do that. Although it might be more accurate. No, that's right. Anyway, the point is we can't trigger it with a button, but we could trigger it with a MIDI keyboard. I think I'm not going to bother with this today, just because I wouldn't actually use it. But it'd be very easy in the Nord Micromodular to incorporate this function. And I left this out. It has a somewhat normal clock. It has a normal clock, and the random skips generator can either mess with that clock, or I think if this is set to a very low value or 0, it doesn't mess with the clock at all. So that's how it's put together, and I thought we'd look at that first, because if you wanted to try to do this on a hardware modular, or in the name I have now remembered is VCV Rack, a very popular virtual synth, you could do that. You could probably do this in some other things like maybe Reason or there's a bunch of stuff. How about Reactor? It could definitely do it. Does anybody still use Reactor? I don't know. That's not a major point. But yeah, like I said, you could build you could build most of these steps on many machines, and if you really want to get this random step modulation and skips generator right, you could probably put in a bit more effort than me. So let's start building. So I'm going to start with the signal chain, and I've talked about in this show before, I've talked about how I don't really like to build before I make a sound, so I am going to make some kind of sound with this, but I can tell you right now, the sound is going to be not super interesting. In fact, if I think it's too annoying, I will turn it down. True story. So let's get building. Okay, so I don't have the delay hooked up, so let's start with our in-out, 2 outputs, and it can only really go to what I think is output 1 is what we're going to use today. So what do we need here? Okay, there's an audio input, so that's this, audio in. I will probably not be using this today, but I'm building it because I can. When I was reading the manual, they recommended that you feed a radio, like a random FM radio, And by random, I mean you can set it to noise, or you can set it to a station, or you can set it in between. And I think that's an setting it to noise and then messing with it a bit would be an interesting choice for this instrument. But there is also noise. So under oscillator, we have noise generator. And they don't specify what their oscillator type is. So I think for today, let's just build oscillator A is our most capable standard sort of oscillator. Again, I'm building it the way the chart looks, so that's why it's not my normal method. And then they have the mixer here, so I'm going to put a little bit of effort into this one as well. For one thing, well, here's a normal mixer with 3 inputs, but as I recall, the manual says that the noise and the oscillator are mixed before the mixer. So what I need is, I think I want this one. This is not a very commonly used mixer on this show, but it serves a function. And what we can do is this. So now the outputs of the normal oscillator and the noise oscillator are fed into channel 1 and 2. This is the crossfader, like a DJ crossfader. So if I do it all the way left, it will be only noise. If I do it all the way right, it will be only oscillator. And if I go back to the middle or approximate middle, it will be both. This is a function on this synth, even though I don't see that here, but you'll have to take my word for it. Or you can read the manual yourself. It's on the website. It's an interesting way to implement it. It would have taken them 2 volume knobs to give one to each, the noise and the oscillator, and they chose to do it this way. I don't actually know if the audio input is going into this. I don't think it is, but for now I'm just going to put the left into here, and that'll have to do it. Yeah, I don't see myself using the stereo output, so I'm not going to bother with that one. So that's this part. That is going to go into, the mixer goes into filter, distortion, volume control, and audio output. Volume control is kind of easy, but let's just build it like they built it. I'm going to assume it's a classic low-pass filter, so I'm putting that one there. I don't think I'm going to spend too much time making this too pretty. Then we have distortion. Where are you, little buddy? I know you're in there. Oh, yeah, they call it overdrive. In fact, they also have what they call clipping and other methods, but I think this is a distortion that the instrument is talking about. And on the body synths, they have a setting for the distortion. It's not going to help if I scroll around too much from that. Again, you'll have to take my word for it, but the point is you can have distortion by itself, or you can have distortion with sample rate reduction. They call this like corrosion and rust. I can't remember which is which, but for me, I think I'm just going to put them both in the signal chain for now, but you could, of course, set the sample rate like this and turn off the bit reduction, and when it's fully on, it's not reducing the sample rate at all, so it's essentially being bypassed, although we'll experiment with turning it down a bit today, and then patch it in here. Oh, I'm hearing a low but audible tone that tells me, okay, well, this is a mistake. Well, we really need, it said we need a volume control here. So, let me see. How am I going to build that? Let me just take a look here. Well, it says volume envelope decay and volume envelope amount, and then volume control. So I think we don't need to, we could put in another mixer, but it's not going to serve a useful function. So I'm going to save some time and some effort by just putting the audio output directly into a envelope, a normal AD envelope. So now when I connect this to here, you don't hear anything. Certainly, I think I said in the introduction that the Metal Fetishist, the original, can be used as a drone, and this prevents that, but since I don't really intend to use it as a drone, I think I'm going to live with it for now. So that's our audio signal path. That didn't take very long. Yeah, good job, Father Moo. So let's keep going here. There is the pitch envelope amount and pitch envelope decay. Okay. Well, that is going to control our single oscillator. As I said, the Metal Fetishist has the option, it may have been an upgrade, to stack oscillators. Let's just skip that today. It's not exactly rocket science. So let's just take a normal envelope. Here's the AD envelope, and feed that, the CV signal, into here. If we turn up this amount, that will be equivalent to pitch envelope amount. And there's a setting here for decay, but not attack. But our attack is already set to the fastest possible speed, so we're fine. And we're going to just do this again, because we have this same thing, same exact thing, controlling the filter as an option. And if we turn up this, we will have the amount of that, so we don't need a module for that. That will be this. And then this is already covered, and I said goes into a mixer. Okay, great. This isn't taking very long. Envelope trigger. Well, we said we're skipping the trigger button. And here we got the clock and the random skips generator. So now we're going to cheat a little bit. First of all, the clock. Our clock lives under LFO, which kind of makes sense. And we're going to use that to clock a clocked random step generator. Oops, wait, is that right? No, that's not it. What I meant was clocked pattern generator. Hooray! So the yellow clock output goes into the input here. I think I'll just skip using the reset function because since our goal is to make weird semi-random patterns, then we don't really need to. So this output is going to go into a bunch of places. It's going to trigger this envelope and this envelope and also this envelope. This is the sound envelope, essentially. Okay, we're hearing something again. There we go. Let me just adjust the volume slightly. Kind of quiet. So it's just pinging away in a very boring pattern. Let's change the pattern by twisting these knobs here. It's important to note that the Metal Fetishist does have a setting for the number of steps. That's a big silver knob. I think this one, you can see here, it says steps underneath. That's the trigger button that we didn't build. So this can be 16 steps, and in the manual it also says you can set it to an uneven division number of steps, like 1, 3, 5, 7. For now, I think 16 will serve, but you know what? In the spirit of the weirdness of this device, let's make it a 23-step generator, which is just weird. And now we have a little bit left here. So we got the random skips generator and the random step modulation generator. Well, I don't think we need to build this, but I will do this. I'm going to put an event sequencer here. So I think there's probably a way to crossfade the... that's a great question. Okay, let's experiment and figure it out. I built a crossfader for the audio, but I don't think I've ever... Oh, I need the opposite. I need like a reverse crossfader. Okay, you get out of here. 1 in to 2 out fader. Yeah, that's the one. Okay, great. So the 1 in, and again, this is red, so it's designed for audio, not clocks, but let's just try. Maybe it'll work. We feed the clock in here. We feed one output to this. Oh, I see a problem here. And the other output to that. Oh, no. I've already mentally solved it. There we go. And then we... Oh, well, nothing's happening. So I guess it didn't actually work. Let's look in Logic. How about... What the heck is this? Oh, I see. It turns a click into a pulse. That's not exactly what we need. Although that suddenly gave me an idea for something I've never done before. Okay, we'll worry about this later. Yeah, how about Logic Processor? No, that's not going to do it either. I was going to see if there's like a Logic Doubler, but it doesn't seem to exist. No, I can't do it. Okay, the reason is because, yeah, this isn't working. So, okay, let's just deal with it. So, if you want to make, in my imperfect model, if you want to make random or semi-random steps, or actually I should say just, yeah, semi or very unpredictable steps, you would use this hookup. And if you didn't want to, you wanted to make a normal pattern that repeats like a drum machine, a normal drum machine, you would patch this into here and then this output into the input of these guys. And each one of these guys would need a logic processor, which would be set to OR. And then we would send this output to one, and then that guy's output to the other, and then this would go into here. But since that isn't really useful now, we'll just delete it again. I'm going to leave this in the build just to remind myself what if you wanted to make a normal pattern. As I said, the Nord Micromodular isn't magic. It can't always duplicate everything perfectly. A much bigger issue is that, like, we have no way of knowing what, or so that's wrong. My very lazy cursory read of the manual didn't tell me which kind of distortion they have, so it could be a different kind. It would be better represented by the clip distortion or the wave wrapper, but for now I'm going to go with this. Remember, kids, always be incredibly lazy. No, I'm just kidding. You probably shouldn't do that. So we got the sequencer steps looper. I think that function is pretty much filled by event sequencer. And we got one we haven't built yet. Random step modulation generator. Okay. You can see that the skips generator feeds this, so that's fine. Let's go with that. At first I was going to plug this clock into a clocked random step generator, but I wonder if this output will feed it. I guess we'll find out by proving it, so let's connect this to this and open it up. Yeah, it's working. Okay, great. So, again, if you wanted to use this one, you could feed this with the normal clock or with this output, but I probably wouldn't use this output. But you can hear what it's doing now. It's randomly reducing the sample rate, and it's changing whenever it receives a pulse from here. So it's going to make the changes in time with every trigger of the envelopes. So that's actually good. I didn't plan in my head to do it that way, but I'm glad we did. So we can turn this down just for a moment, because this guy, the random step modulation generator, also goes through an amount control. Well, that's the little knob I just turned down, and goes to the filter and the oscillator, and even goes to the mixer, except I don't have a way of really modulating this mixer with this function, because the mixer doesn't have a CV in. But it can definitely go to the oscillator and the filter. Notice that it doesn't go to the distortion, so we won't do that. Keep clicking the wrong thing. Here we go. So this will go into the filter input and also into the oscillator pitch input. Now I said that this thing could make melodies, and if I turn this up, it will change the pitch, but it's not a melody in the Western sense, right? It's just crazy notes that are all over the place. If I wanted to, I could put a quantizer in here, but the Metal Fetishist I don't think does that, so I'm just going to let it keep going. So let's also turn up the amount knob on the filter. Luckily this filter has 2 CV ins, so it can take it from the modulation from the envelope or from the random source. So let's make it from the random source. It's going to make some notes louder or softer as it opens and closes. And this is not exactly what I would call the typical sound of the Metal Fetishist. But let's dial it in a bit better now. We've basically built all the parts. All we can do now is build something a little bit more musical. So here's some distortion. And here's some sample rate reduction. And here is, I don't know if no, this doesn't go into the distortion at all, so it doesn't really modulate this, but I like it, so I'm going to leave it in. So, too bad if you don't like it. Good, so, again, this is not what I would try to make on this instrument, so I'm going to turn this down. The modulation is still affecting the filter and the digitizer, but not the overdrive and not the pitch anymore. So, one thing that I did here sounded really cool to me on the Metal Fetishist was it made some very distorted gabber kick drums. And if you watch some of the other videos I made approximately last week, I was making some horribly distorted kick drums on my Eurorack. So I think I'm going to try and do something like that today. And when I say horribly, I do mean horribly. So first I'm going to turn him down to make him more like a kick drum. Then I'm going to reduce the decay on the final volume controlling envelope. So now he sounds quite a bit more like a weird, sometimes distorted kick drum. And I think if I turn this amount up, then the pitch may slide down every time it triggers. Let's see if that works properly. I think I'm going to turn this modulation off just so we can know that we're hearing exactly what we're hearing here. And I can't really tell. I think what's happening is the decay here is shorter than the decay on this, so you can't hear the effect it's having on the pitch. So that means if we shorten this, just doing this to hear, that sounds not too terrible actually. Kind of like a, this is up, right? Yep, I can click on the cable to check where it's connected to. Oh, that makes it sound more like a kick drum, for sure. Oh, that's what I thought it would sound like. Okay, but I just learned something today. Putting it right there at about 51 milliseconds is giving it some of the real sound of a kick drum. Turn it off again, and that's more like an 808 kick, like it's just booming. There you can actually hear the punch, like the hammer hitting the bass drum head. And I didn't know that would do that, which is crazy. It's not crazy that I don't know something, obviously, but I wasn't expecting to learn that today. So, lesson learned. And let's just repeat the lesson here. If I turn this later, you get like a doo-doo type of sound, like an old electronic tom-tom. And if you turn it too far to the left, I think you get nothing, basically. But right in the 50 millisecond range, you get some thump in the start of the thing that really makes it sound like a distorted kick drum, which I think is awesome. So let's dial in the weird modulation back into this one. Wow. That's awesome. And how about this? Okay, this is kind of what I thought the Metal Fetishist sounded like. Oh, we should also remember we are now set to hear white noise and the pitched oscillator together. That's probably why it actually sounds more like a kick drum, because it's got some noise in the circuit. So this is pitched oscillator only. Still sounds cool to me. You can hear that noise now, and there's noise only. So this has a function too. It's a bit more like thunder crashes, at least some of them. And you could dial in the noise with white or color. That makes it real bassy. And this makes it the full spectrum. But I think this is a good example of what I was going for. So yeah, just because this seems like it's going to be a short video, let's just do the other option here. So I could move this down to here, and then patch this output into all the other outputs. It should be what? Oh, I guess I have to unpatch. Okay, I think I can do this. Watch this. Double click this to grab all of them, and then patch it to there. Now if I put in a pattern on here, I've intentionally put in a very boring pattern just so you could hear it, what it's doing. But I might actually like it if I took this out, maybe turn this down a bit. I like it with it in just for some variation. Well, that's just a sort of repeatable drum pattern. Oh, I guess, oh yeah, this has got a click going into it, so it's doing its job. Yeah. But I like it even better with the randomness, so I'm patching them all back here, putting the clock back into... Oh, you know what? I guess I could do clock to both. Doesn't matter. Yeah. So that's my Metal Fetishist, and it didn't cost me $430 from PerfectCircuit.com. This post has not been sponsored by PerfectCircuit.com. Just drinking my chocolate milk here because I'm an overgrown toddler. Anyway, yeah, it's as simple as this, and my very real advice to you is, if there's a synth you want to buy, and a modular synth you already own, read the manual of what you think you want to buy, and then try to build it yourself. And if nothing else, like me, you'll discover that one certain knob setting teaches you something about drum programming that you didn't already know, even though in this case I'm very confident that other people knew this before me. Why? Because I've seen pitch envelopes on drum machines before, and I never really thought about what it would be used for beyond the doo-doo type of sound that it made when it was here. Like that. That's like 500 milliseconds. But yeah, so not only do you get a free instrument, but you get a free synth learning lesson, I guess. So yeah, that's this weird little instrument. If I turn these on, I'll get a smaller amount of hits. But it sounds good to me. And like I said, I will still be supporting body synths by buying a metal fetishist when I can afford one. And one reason I want to do that is to run it through my tubes, although I could, of course, run this through the tubes, and maybe I will. But the way my studio is set up right now, the Nord has one laptop, and the tubes have a different one, because the other one looks like it's going to die soon, so I bought this cheap secondhand one. But it works, so who cares? So yeah, maybe not my most listenable patch, but I am surprised to say I learned something today. And as I said, this is an awesome thing to do if there's something you want to buy and you already own a modular. Maybe you will spend less money on synths, and you can spend more money on, I assume, my Patreon. I don't think anyone has ever signed up to my Patreon, but that's okay. That is fine. I don't even know the password there anymore. It doesn't matter. So yeah, Father Moose signing off with a short, but for me, quite interesting patch. Oh, the last thing I got to do is save this bad boy. I don't want to save it in the low-numbered patches because all my dubs are at the low end, so I'm going to call this Metal F in honor of Metal Fingers Doom, or Metal Face Doom if you prefer. Rest in peace, you king. And I am going to save it in the synth in preset 99. Over top of some other dumb patch, but I've backed them up already, so it doesn't matter. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this affordable video and instructional video. And I'll be back to dub very soon, very, very soon. So don't worry, dub's not going anywhere, but pound isn't going anywhere either. That's my other homemade Warhammer 40k style genre. Thank you for listening. Father Moo out.